Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on your Saturday morning. We hope that you and your loved ones are doing well and are safe and healthy. My name is Lauren Riley. I'm an Assistant Director of Admission in the Office of Undergraduate Admission. And I want to welcome you to our final Coffee and Conversations session with BC faculty. This is our final day of programming. It's all been part of a Discover Boston College virtual open house series. And if you have not been able to join us for these sessions or any of the other sessions that we've had that have featured student panels, faculty members, staff members, and we've had a lot of great discussions over this past month of programming, we have recorded all of it, and it all lives on bc.edu/visit. So we definitely encourage you to watch some of those sessions at your leisure. We also have our very last session today at 4 p.m. It's an admission advice session, and it's a final Q&A with admission staff members. So if you are not registered for that, we encourage you to join us for that as well. In addition to this wonderful session that we will be having here and have the opportunity to speak with faculty members at Boston College, we are offering and have been offering virtual information sessions that feature student panels, live virtual campus tours to try to give you a sense of what it's like to be on campus. And we've been able to offer one-on-one conversations with current Boston College students. All of these programs can also be registered for right at that bc.edu/visit website if you haven't been. And hopefully you've seen some of my colleagues or myself at some high school visits that we've been doing across the country and all over the world to meet with you virtually through this process. So whether this is your first time engaging with us or your 10th time engaging with us, we definitely welcome you, and we're happy that you're here with us this morning. But I am definitely delighted to welcome two members of the BC faculty who are taking the time out of their Saturday to join us this morning. So we're delighted to have them. We have Professor Tracy Regan, Professor of the Practice and Director of Undergraduate Studies in Economics, and Professor Ed Taylor, Senior Lecturer and Assistant Chairperson in Accounting. So it is great to have both of you here. I am also joined by two of my colleagues in undergraduate admission who will be behind the scenes managing the question and answer tab. So if you do have questions throughout this chat, feel free to throw those in there and we will try to answer as many of them as we can. We have disabled that chat function, but again, we will have that Q&A feature open. So feel free to throw any questions in there. Now, the purpose of today is, instead of focusing on a specific presentation from each respective departments, we really wanted to make this conversational. And we wanted you to have the opportunity to hear from professors about their stories, their reflections about their relationships with students, and their areas of emphasis and research, and as well as get to your questions, of course. So to get us started, we do have a few questions. And the first question that I have for Professor Regan and Professor Taylor is, what brought you to Boston College, and what do you love most about working with BC students? So maybe Professor Regan, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So thanks everyone for joining. I wish I could see you all, but good morning, depending upon what part of the country or the world that you're in. So I actually went to graduate school at the University of Arizona. And so my first job out of graduate school was an assistant professor at the University of Miami, where I spent 8 years. And I think at the conclusion of that time, I realized my comparative advantage was actually in teaching. One of the benefits of going to graduate school at a public university is there are tons of summer and winter sessions. And so I taught like a mad person. I think I taught a total of at least like 13 classes over the course of graduate school, partly because I enjoyed it and also as a way of earning a little extra income because you're relatively poor when you are in graduate school. So that was something I just really enjoyed. I felt like it was a more direct contribution to society as opposed to the long kind of pipelines that happen with research. And so I very much view my research to be complementary to my teaching, but I really enjoyed kind of the one-on-one connections I would establish with my students. And so the University of Arizona actually asked me to go back to U of A, where I spent 2 years. And actually that gave me the opportunity of teaching a 300-person class, which actually has helped me as I teach one of the large lectures at Boston College. It's now Principles of Economics, and so it's about 250 people. So it was a really good way of getting my feet wet in terms of the management of a classroom of that size. And so BC for me has really been kind of this ideal mix of a liberal arts institution for the undergrads, and then the Department of Economics, where I reside, is a highly research active department. So I get kind of the best of both worlds in that I get a more intimate classroom environment. So in addition to teaching this large lecture, I have freshman topic seminars, I teach upper level electives, I teach classes as part of the core renewal program at BC. One of those is called an enduring questions class, and that's actually capped at 19. So it's this nice mix of kind of large lectures and small, more intimate settings. And I get to take advantage of a very active seminar series we have in the econ department. And so it's really been just kind of ideal for me. And the BC students are really exceptional. I've been, fortunate to be at great institutions, but I think there's something especially fantastic about the kids at BC. And it might have to do with the Jesuit education or the households in which they were raised in, but they're a real delight to teach, and I feel lucky to be here.
Professor Taylor?
Yes, my name is Ed Taylor. I've been around Boston College my whole life. I grew up about 8 miles from the campus. I went to Boston College. Let me just show you my graduation picture. There I am, way back when, in the 1980s. So I went to Boston College. Met my wife at Boston College. My 3 children have gone to Boston College. I've been teaching at Boston College for close to 30 years. I know I don't look that old, but I've taught over 250 classes. I've had over 8,000 students. My background, I'm a CPA. That's a certified public accountant. I'm not a typical academic. I don't research. I don't have a PhD. My job is to teach, advise, and interact with the students. My job, again, is as a teacher, I teach 11 courses a year. So that's a lot of classes. So I'm in the classroom 12 months a year, including the summer. It's my passion in life. My job, again, is to deal with the students. After week 2, I know every student in my classes by name. I make them all come meet with me one-on-one. We build that rapport. We build that chemistry. So I really do love to work with the students. And that, again, that is my job. Boston College is my life. And when you do come to BC, if you do come to BC, you'll never regret coming here. It's not 4 years, it's a lifetime. And we won't be in COVID forever. We'll be back to our old self. So hopefully when you're a freshman here next fall, we'll be back to our old self. It's been a challenging semester this semester, but the students are just so excited to be back on campus after being abruptly sent home last March. It's different. It's different. We're doing hybrid classes mostly, where half the students come to class one day, the other half watch on Zoom, and then they flip the next day, half come and half watch on Zoom. It's been different. We're in class with masks. That's different. But again, I've never seen students just so happy to be back on campus. There's such a great community at BC. It's a lifetime. It's not just 4 years.
Awesome, thank you. And I love that you're basically presenting from Linden Lane on campus. That we have that.
Yeah, I'm right here, right? I'm right
on campus.
All day here.
I love it. And now you both touched on this a little bit, but can we talk about a course that you teach and maybe what the syllabus is like or what your teaching style is like? So Professor Taylor, do you want to start? We'll kick it back to you to start us off this time.
I teach a mixture of introductory courses. So if you're in the Carroll School of Management, one of the core classes is called Financial Accounting. And everybody will take that. Usually as a freshman or a sophomore, you'll take the introductory course. It's personally my favorite course to teach because students have no idea what they're getting into. They walk into accounting. The first thought is, oh, this is going to be boring. Accounting, numbers, accountant's boring. And it's anything but that. Accounting is the language of business. And so my style is interactive. I mean, it's not lecture. It's getting the students involved, getting to feel passionate about numbers and business. And again, for most kids, it's their first business class. And so that's my style. It's more interactive. It's an introductory class. If you choose to pursue a career or a concentration in accounting, you'll probably see me again because I teach taxation also. Doesn't that sound exciting, taxation? But so I teach taxation classes, which are upper level classes. And also, again, I'm hands-on. That's my style. And to be a certified public accountant, a CPA, you need more than just the normal course load that you'll take at BC. So I'm the advisor for anybody that pursues that CPA. I'm also the liaison with the employers. So all the firms that come to campus, I'm the intermediary between the students and the school. And one of my jobs is to help our students get internships and get full-time jobs. And so that's typical. That's typically what I do. Again, my job is not research. My job is to work with the students, help them get jobs, help them advise on their careers, help them with their resume, just help them. As being an older person now, we have life experience. And that's one thing good about being older. I know a lot of people. I can direct, I can guide, I can help place them in an internship, for example.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And Professor Regan?
Yeah, so I similarly teach kind of a host and a variety of classes. So I teach this big introductory principles of economics. I've got electives in healthcare and labor and industrial organization, which is kind of my areas of research. And one class I think that's fun that I get to teach every fall semester is a freshman topic seminar. It's also referred to as a cornerstone program. And so there's two different varieties that students in MCAS, which is the College of Arts and Sciences, can choose between. And so it's either a freshman topic seminar or it's Courage to Know. So the business school where Ed teaches has a Portico class, which is kind of probably a little bit similar, but that focuses on business ethics. Whereas my freshman topic seminar introduces kids to what I consider to be the fun side of economics. And so on a weekly basis, the students actually read an academic article, and I've chosen from some of my favorite within kind of my reading of various areas within the discipline. And I try to choose articles that are a little bit understandable for an 18-year-old student who doesn't have any presumed knowledge of economics. But we read these articles and the students prepare questions that either relate to the articles so they can understand a little bit about research. They can kind of probe the issues a bit further, criticize some of the findings and some of the methodology of the researchers. And then there's a second question where we extrapolate to society at large. And so we've discussed everything so far that has to deal with kind of colonization of the new world by the old world. We've talked about racial bias in hiring. We've talked about the lottery program that was put in place in Oregon for the expansion of Medicaid that gave a little bit of information in terms of the Affordable Care Act being passed. And so the thing that I like about it is it's an entirely discussion-based class. Generally speaking, we sit in a circle. This semester we're a bit spaced out with requirements of the classroom, but it's entirely a conversation and a discussion and a debate. And so there's no like tests or written assignments per se. So I think that's a lot of fun. And it's a class that's about 15 people big, so it's quite small. I actually have probably about 15 to 30 minutes at the beginning of each class where we're just sharing about our life, like what's going on. How has the transition been from high school into college? I'll have the students break out into small groups so they get a chance to know people in their classroom. I'll give them assignments where they have to get lunch with one another, just to expand kind of their community and network of individuals on the campus. And so as I guess a byproduct of teaching that class, I actually act as their academic advisor. And so I'm kind of with them for the entire first year, just talking about classes and kind of future goals, maybe thoughts about studying abroad, challenges they might be having as well. So it's been really fun. It was a class I had thought about for many years. And so knowing that this particular program exists at BC was like a wonderful opportunity to actually offer something like that.
That's fabulous. And, to go off of that, Professor Regan,
Yeah.
the transition to college, right, can be a rocky one for any student, right? You can love a school, but it can still be a rocky transition. And obviously professors have such an important role in students' lives. And so you've touched on it a little bit, but can you both talk a little bit about how you advise students when they're having that difficulty, whether that's in class, maybe a little bit, but through maybe office hours, or what are some of those things you have in place to kind of help students and build those relationships and advise them through that process? So,
Well, I think it's really getting to build a relationship with a student to a point where a student wants to come to you to talk to you. So I find that, again, I find an important part of what I do is really working hard in the early weeks of the semester to get to know the student. So they do build this rapport with you, particularly when they're young, freshmen or sophomores. They don't have anybody to turn to. So if you have built a relationship with them early, they'll feel comfortable coming. I require every student to come see me in the first 2 weeks of class. A requirement. Just sit with me for 5-10 minutes, just to where you're from, what's your name. Once I meet you, once I put a face with the name, I know them the rest of the semester. So they come to class. Again, you build that relationship. So again, if somebody's struggling early, hopefully we built up this rapport that they'll feel comfortable coming to talk to us. So that's kind of my style, and it's worked well over the last 25 plus years. And you're right, Lauren. It's the freshman years can be difficult because you're away from home. A lot of them are away from home for the first time. They're in a foreign place, strange place. They don't know anybody. The good news is everybody's in the same boat. Every freshman is in the same predicament. I don't know anybody here. And everybody's looking to make bonds and relationships with each other and with fellow BC community members like faculty.
Yeah, so I, similar to Ed, actually spend a lot of time in conversation with my students. So I study the students' names and get to know them very soon within the semester. And I get to know a lot of students, even in a class of 300 people. And I think it's important to be able to establish those connections, even if you're sitting in a stadium-style classroom. So just talking to people and just talking about life, it doesn't have to be related to economics. I encourage students to come into my office hours if they are struggling with the material, but just to talk in general. Like, I'm Irish, so I can talk the paint off the wall, right? And so you just get to know a lot about what's going on campus and what challenges the students are facing and what joys they're finding in campus as well. In my 2 freshman class that are a bit smaller during the fall, I set aside 20-minute meetings for each of them. This semester, because of the requirements for COVID, I've actually been picking up Starbucks en route to campus, and we sit outside and share coffee and a conversation for about 20 minutes each. So that's provided a little bit of normalcy, I think, to an otherwise kind of strange semester. I'm a very open book. Like, I share, my successes and my struggles with my students, just normalizing things. I participate in a whole host of committees and organizations on campus. So I feel like I'm a pretty well-connected person. And if somebody is having trouble, I'll get them in touch with a faculty member. I'll get them in touch with the department that oversees a particular program. I'll put students in touch with upperclassmen. I bring upperclassmen back to my class to kind of reflect on things because I think that they can most relate to the students. So there's a program called Halftime as well, and that's something that students that are sophomores or juniors tend to participate in. And it's very much like storytelling, right? And it's kind of exposing to the students that you as faculty are also people, and not everything in your life has been linear and perfect. When you look at somebody at this point, it thinks, oh yeah, they've had all this success, she became a professor, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's happened in between. And so I just like to share with people because I think that it's important to not struggle alone and to know that you are in community and solidarity with a whole host of people.
I love that you are also having your own session of like coffee and conversation series with your students. Who even knew? This is apparently a thing at Boston College.
Sadly, I only have water today. I already had my coffee, but otherwise I wouldn't. So.
I love it. I love it. And now let's talk a little bit about this pandemic, right? Which you both have kind of hinted to already, but with campus being different, even though we have most of our students on campus, can you talk a little bit about maybe your specific courses and how they've been impacted, and also too that connections piece, right? Connection with the BC community, whether that's students or even just one another. How has that been impacted, and how are both of you kind of grappling with that with yourselves and with your students? Mm-hmm.
I guess I could start. I'm teaching 4 classes this semester. It's a typical semester for me. One is an MBA class that's always online, as it always has been online. So that hasn't been affected by COVID. My other 3 classes are undergraduate classes. And just for people, the participants here, my classes are fairly small. I have 2 classes of 35, the introductory class that I mentioned earlier, 2 sections of those are 35. And I have an advanced class, a tax class that's live that has about 20 in it. So I have smaller classes than Professor Regan has, but it's been different this semester. Like I mentioned earlier, 2 of my classes are hybrid. Again, meaning the students, half the students come one day, the other half watch on Zoom, the other half come the other day. And so it's kind of a hopscotch scenario. It's been a little more difficult to be quite candid because it's harder to get to know the students. We are in class with masks on. I have a mask on. The students have masks on. I still have office hours live in my office, so that's been good. I've got to know the students a little bit that way. But it's been a lot more challenging for me as a faculty member to do what I do best, and that's interact with the students. So I found it quite challenging, quite candidly, getting to know the students as well as I usually do. My live class is pretty much the same as it was pre-COVID, despite the mask in class. It's a smaller class. I know everybody. It feels almost normal. But the hybrid classes, the hopscotch as we call it, it's a little challenging. Again, I don't feel like I have that connection that I usually have with everybody. So it's different. But like I said earlier, I've never seen the students so upbeat despite the abnormality of the situation. They are just so excited to be back on campus with their peers and just back to some kind of normalcy rather than being home watching classes exclusively on Zoom. So again, it's been different, it's been challenging, but again, it's gratifying to see everybody back and everybody feeling, you can just see it on their face how happy they are to be back.
Yeah, so for me, so I actually have two freshman classes. So the freshman topic seminar that's 15 people, and then this complex problem, or excuse me, enduring questions class that's part of the core renewal, which is an interdisciplinary approach to a particular topic. And so I'm actually partnered up with a law professor, and we talk about the legal and economic sides of healthcare. And so that's a 19-person class. So my co-teacher actually teaches on Zoom, and I teach in person. So both of my classes are actually in person this semester. So it hasn't been as different per se as it might have been for people like Ed, who are doing entirely online classes or this hybrid model where half of the students come one day of the week and then the other half come the second day. So it is admittedly a little different to have masks on and to have the students spaced out with masks on, but you know, you just get over it pretty quickly and stuff too. So I will say, similar to Ed, like the students, despite all of these kind of restrictions that are put in place, seem happy to be back, like, or not even to be back, because this is their first time I have freshmen, but to be in college and kind of doing some college things. And so a couple things that I've done a little bit differently in addition to hosting the coffee sessions is for both of the classes, I have a little bit of a budget to work with. And so I hosted a picnic dinner outside during the month of September when the weather was like nice, as it actually is today here as well. But so we all sat in a massive circle and were able to eat in community with one another, which I thought was really fun. And due to the fact that the students sit in a particular seat every single class, I've done more group activities where it kind of forces them to actually talk to somebody who sits on the other side of the classroom. And they have to either, you know, kind of meet outside or figure out a space on campus where they can meet as a group or do Zooms, but still they're connecting to people as opposed to, you know, just sitting there quietly and just talking to a couple people around them. So I've made a concerted effort of diversifying the groups this semester so that everyone has the opportunity to engage with everyone else. And I still, you know, have a very interactive and participatory classroom despite people spread out and speaking with masks. So I've just normalized it to the extent that that's possible, and the students seem to be pretty receptive to it.
That's great. And then our final question before we go over to the Q&A, and we do have some great questions that are coming in the Q&A, is what advice do you have for these students who are kind of going through this college search process or preparing to enter college? Is there like a snippet of advice that you could possibly give to our listeners today? Whoever has one first, whoever's ready.
That's a tough question. I think it's where you feel comfortable. I know that I'm going back 30 years, but I remember when I showed up on campus at Boston College in the 1980s, it was just felt like home to me. So, I mean, I think you can't go wrong. A lot of you that are applying to Boston College, you're obviously very bright and accomplished, and you're going to have many options, many good options. Just choose the one where you feel comfortable. Like I said earlier, for me, Boston College was the right fit for me. And again, it hasn't been a 4-year experience for me. It's been a lifetime experience for me.
Mm.
And that's another thing. Look at a school that's going to serve you well for the rest of your life, not just 4 years. The BC Alumni Network is second to none. We are so loyal to our alums. We are everywhere. So if you're looking for a job, you're looking for advice, you're looking for counseling, we are everywhere. So the alumni network is really strong. I can't think of many schools that have an alumni network like ours. So again, you're not signing up for 4 years, you're signing up for a lifetime.
Mhm. That's great.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, it's always easy to say these things when you're not in the throes of the application and decision-making process, but when you have an opportunity to kind of step back from things, right, you can kind of reevaluate it. And to the extent possible, try not to stress too much. It's 4 years of your entire life. It's a very special time, but you have a lifetime after college as well. I went to a huge state university with like 50,000 students. And so, I think college is what you make of it, regardless if you go to a tiny liberal arts college of 1,200 people or you go to a massive state school with 50,000 people. You yourself will seek out opportunities and classes and professors and groups that allow you to personalize your college experience to what you hope that it will actually be. There's a lot of error in the whole decision-making process and acceptance process. Try not to take it too personally. You're going to do fine wherever you end up. I really do think that. And on the chance that it's not the right decision, you have an opportunity to go somewhere else too. Nothing is totally deterministic in your life. And also, I think what works for one person doesn't always work for another. So there's a fair amount of peer pressure within this, but just know that you are different, right? And someone might do incredibly well at a school of 1,200 people, and you might thrive at a university of 50,000 people. And so I think to Ed's point, it's interesting not having gone to BC, and I've been now in Boston for 8 years, but I hear so many people walking on campus that are alums and they're like, oh, it just feels like home. And it might seem cliche, but it legitimately seems that the alumni network of BC very much feels that way. And when I first came to Boston, I was so touched by the sincere kind of welcomes that I got. Boston's not always known for having the most friendly people, but I would have people say, welcome to Boston, with the most like sincerity imaginable. And then you tell them you work at BC and they're like, oh my gosh, so there really is something special, I think, going on in this campus. And I would also say the thing that's nice about BC is it's a very collegiate atmosphere and it has great access to Boston. And we have, a thriving sports program. So I think it's got a ton of things actually going for it, which is exciting. And it gives students lots of opportunities to kind of do what suits them best.
Great. So our first question that came in has to do with office hours. So can we talk about how many office hours you keep and how do students get help if they're having issues? So, this specific question has to do with, for example, math problems, but let's kind of expand that to any problems that they're having. So Ed, I see that you mentioned that you were gonna address that first. So feel free to start us off.
I have office hours, usually 6 hours a week, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a fairly good amount of office hours. Also by appointment. Again, even with COVID, I've been doing live office hours as well as Zoom, and also by appointment. Again, with Zoom, we can really meet anytime. So I've probably been meeting more in terms of office hours during this whole COVID thing than in a regular semester. As far as help outside of office hours, I mean, in our department, we have an array of tutors. We have probably 20 or 30 tutors lined up to help if you need help. I have a TA that's also a tutor. So we have plenty of resources available to help our students when they are struggling and when I'm not available. So like I said, I got 4 classes of students. So if I'm not available, we have a team of tutors.
Yeah, so for me, I do kind of 2 hours per week per class, but I'm always available for students to make appointments with. So they just need to shoot me an email and we'll set up a time and day that's agreeable. For my bigger class of 300 people, I usually have 4 teaching assistants. And so between the 5 of us, there's 12 office hours a week, in addition to discussion sections that are anywhere between 20 and 30 students. So there's actually lots of resources to help the students actually succeed should they need any additional assistance and kind of one-on-one attention there. So in addition to just helping the students with the material, office hours is just also an opportunity to say hi, check in, kind of just get to know your faculty member, and for the faculty member to get to know the student as well. So that's generally kind of what I evaluate, or that's what I generally view office hours to be.
Great. And then this one is, we'll start with you, Professor Regan, because it goes right for you.
Okay.
Does economics include a lot of history? And what are some of the are there more difficult classes that you think students really grow in or struggle with at the beginning?
Yeah, so I think that kind of the current iteration of economics is a lot more quant heavy. I think, if you went back 50 years ago, you would get a lot more of economic history and economic philosophy in the curriculum. So I think right now, you really probably should seek out classes in philosophy and political science if you're interested more in notions of history and philosophy. And fortunately, we have very good departments there, which kind of complement what we do in economics. So when I do teach classes, I try to give historical context to different pieces of legislation that have been passed and different policies put in place. So that's my kind of efforts at, attempting to understand how things came to be as they currently are. I would generally say the things that challenge the students the most, it can be a significant jump from principles of economics into the theory classes because the math requirements are more rigorous. And there's a lot of people who don't think they're quote unquote good at math, and I don't believe that. I think everyone can actually learn to do math. And so it's just a matter of getting over that fear factor and then seeking out the help that you do in fact need. Other classes that can be challenging for students are statistics and then econometrics, but I think that this current environment with all the statistics coming out with COVID is really underscoring the importance to understanding what good data is, right? And understanding data. And so the great thing with both statistics and econometrics that we offer in our department is the students are trained in a particular computer program called Stata. And that's like a skill that will in fact help you get jobs. It's like having literacy in another language, right? Not only am I fluent in French, but I'm also fluent now in Stata or Python or SAS. And so I think, some of the foundational courses in economics are the tough stuff, and then you get into the fun electives. But it's like the medicine you have to take in order to be better and succeed later on. But we have like the largest major on campus. And so you'll have a ton of your peers that are in classes with you. And I think as much as you can learn from faculty, you can also learn from your classmates as well. And our graduate students, we have probably like 75 PhD students that work with classes, and they're great resources for the students as well to seek out help if they need it. And those graduate students are more connected, right, to being in the throes of school. So they really are relatable to the students.
Great. And then this actually goes for both technically the Carroll School and MCAS, is what is the difference, knowing that there's two options, right, between the Carroll School and the College of Arts and Sciences when it comes to that economics, those classes and that program?
Yeah, so I'll say this. So I did my undergrad through the College of Arts and Sciences because I was a math and an economics major. And so I also kind of valued a liberal arts approach to things. I had also studied French, and I did take accounting. At one point realized I'm not going to be an accountant. So kudos to people like Ed who are training students in a very exciting atmosphere where they get interested in accounting. But actually my PhD was offered through a business school, and both the econ department at Arizona and Miami were also in the business school. So I'd say across the country, like half of econ is in arts and science, the other half is in a business school equivalent. So the econ department teaches all the econ classes for Carroll. There's not a separate Department of Economics in Carroll's. It's all through the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. So Carroll students also have to take introductory econ unless they AP out or get an IB exam that's sufficient in terms of the score. So we see, and I service a ton of the Carroll students there. I would argue in the current state that actually we have the requirement of econometrics if you are a Morrissey College of Arts and Science students, which I think makes the degree more valuable and more rigorous, and you have more elective requirements. So if you really want to dive deeper into econ, I think it's prudent to go actually the path of MCAS as opposed to CSOM. I think CSOM does an amazing job of this huge foundation and gives you a vocabulary for interviews so that you can gain internships. But if a student either chooses not to apply to CSOM or doesn't get accepted, the econ majors through MCAS can actually do a minor through CSOM, and that's been incredibly popular, and I think it's so valuable because it gives students a context to evaluate a lot of the theories that we talk about in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences.
Fabulous. And then can we talk a little bit about, which you both have alluded to already, the jobs and internships that maybe you see some of your students participating in or are very popular for your students within either your departments or just in your conversations with the students that you have. So Professor Taylor, let's start with you.
Yeah, for the accounting end, I mean, pretty much 100% of our accounting concentration students will get an internship and a full-time job. I mean, that's how well we do with our employers. They love our BC students. So pretty much sophomore year, at the end of sophomore year, the big employers, the big firms have what they call leadership programs. And they're really recruiting programs to get their hooks in our students early. So after sophomore year, they'll do a leadership program with the firms during the summer. And they'll also have an offer for their full-time internship after their junior year. So pretty much sophomore year leadership program, junior year in a full-time 10-week internship, paid internship, pretty good pay, $27 to $30 an hour. And then after that, they would have a full-time offer upon graduation. And like I said, our placement rate is pretty much 100%. So the firms, like I said, the firms really want our students.
So I would say for me, it's a little different actually teaching in New England relative to teaching in Miami or kind of in the West Coast, in that I think the households that a lot of students come from here, and also just due to proximity to Wall Street, there's a lot of interest in banking and also in consulting as well. So those are the two probably most popular areas that students seek out internships and jobs as well. That being said, there's still other things you can do, right? Despite having a background in economics. And so I've had students that have worked in environmental capacities, students who teach for America. I've had a host of students that are econ majors and bio minors that actually end up going to med school, but sometimes they're able to work for consulting firms in a healthcare capacity because they have the science background and the technical skills required that they got through taking econ classes. So there's a whole host of things I think that people can actually do. I think you'll find a lot of recruiting happening on the job fairs that do again get into consulting and banking, and the other things are certainly available. You might have to seek them out or be a bit more patient because the recruiting happens at different points. I was talking to a student the other day who's actually doing a finance degree through Carroll, econ through MCAS, and a film minor. And now he's interested in doing a joint MBA and MFA. So like, you never know where your interests are going to take you. But I think, again, graduating from BC, regardless of what you study and regardless of the school that you're actually in, is a huge positive signal to employers. And with an extensive network of alumni, I think that it's a ridiculously high number of students that get coveted internships and then terrific job offers once they actually graduate.
That's great. Let me see if we have any others that we want to talk about at this time. We do have a question. I guess we can start with Professor Taylor with this, is that thinking about preparation, whether that's going to be through research and data, maybe that's going to be helpful for accounting, but then also too, even for economics as well. Are there specific classes, or what do you help to make sure, or what do you do to help make sure that students are prepared with the technical skills, whether that's, again, you kind of talked about, Professor Regan, the data, but also coding, and making sure that students are prepared for those technical skills once they leave school. So are there resources for that to help students with the development of those skills?
It really depends what they're looking for. I mean, one of the most popular areas right now is data analytics. Mm-hmm. And so a lot more students are getting into the whole data analytics area. So yes, there are opportunities. Again, that's probably the hottest area right now. Mm-hmm. Professor Regan, you probably see the same thing.
Yeah. The other thing I would say too, so So our statistics and our econometrics class teach students a coding program called STATA. So there's a similar statistics class being offered through CSOM, but they teach in R, which is another program. So actually Ethan Sullivan, who's one of the associate deans at Carroll, and I are actually working, I think Carroll actually already has this, but we're putting together a 1-credit class of STATA in economics that anyone can take, because CSOM also offers a 1-credit class in R that anyone can take. So you actually can get training in just a coding language irrespective of an entire course. We have an elective that uses Python, so that's another way for students to actually get kind of up to speed in coding. And I would also say that CS1 and CS2 are quite good for students regardless of whether or not they want to pursue computer science, because they teach Python and they teach Java. And the thing with this is once you get training in one language, it's easier to learn another. So I think that is a very good skill set to have. It helps for students that are actually doing research. Faculty can fund students through grants they have themselves. Some students just volunteer for research opportunities. But there's also a program called the Undergrad Research Fellowship, and it's a way of funding a student. I think they can work 10 to 20 hours per week, per semester, and it actually goes during the summer. And it's a way to actually get involved with a faculty member and his or her research. And so in addition to the research skills that you get, you're also forming a relationship with a faculty member. And so that's kind of exciting. We have, for the senior year, our honor students actually have the opportunity of writing a thesis. And the majority of undergrads are doing empirical work as opposed to theoretical work. So they're just building on the skill set that they've acquired in their statistics and econometrics classes as well. The library offers other classes through their research services program that's actually staffed by a lot of our PhD students that, again, give students an opportunity to learn other programming skills. And I just think in this environment, it's important you get exposed to one type of programming so your employer is confident that you've seen that, and then hopefully they can train you in the language that they actually use in that job.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we have made it through all of our questions. So I want to just thank both of you for being with us here today. This was absolutely wonderful. I know our guests appreciate it for sure from seeing all their comments in the chat or in the Q&A feature. For those of you who want to watch this again, have no fear. We have recorded it. You will be able to watch it as much as you would like, and it will be posted on the bc.edu/visit with all of our other on-demand content. I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Thank you again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I definitely did. And we wish you all the best with this college search and application process. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.